in San Bernardino by visiting Teamsters1932.org/organize to start today.
Located in the heart of San Bernardino, California, the Teamsters Local 1932 Training Center is designed to train workers for high-demand, good-paying jobs in various industries throughout the Inland Empire. If you want a pathway to a high-paying job and the respect that comes with a union contract, visit 1932trainingcenter.org to enroll today. That's 1932trainingcenter.org. One of the best ways to build a healthier local economy is by shopping locally. Teamster Advantage is a shop local program started by Teamster Local 1932 that has brought together hundreds of locally owned businesses to provide discounts for residents who make shopping locally their priority. Everything from restaurants like Corky's to fun times at SB Raceway and much, much more. If you're not currently a Teamster and you want access to these local business discounts, contact Jennifer at 909-889-8377, extension 224. Give her a call. That number again is 909-889-8377, extension 224.
Labor unions built the middle class, and the middle class built America. That's the message from Teamsters Local 1932, a strong and successful labor union based in San Bernardino that represents over 14,000 hardworking people across the Inland Empire. The Teamsters are ready to help you organize for better pay, increased benefits, and improved working conditions. Reach out to Teamsters 1932 at teamsters1932.org/organize to speak with an organizer today.
Miss your favorite show? Download the podcast at KCAAradio.com.
And welcome, brothers, sisters, working class heroes. This is The Rick Smith Show. Thanks so much for being here today on the big program. Lots to get to, lots to talk about. The red wave, kind of a trickle. Not even really that, so to speak. Was expecting, we talked about this yesterday, was expecting, potentially the wave that the mainstream corporate-controlled for-profit media was throwing at us. Not as much as we thought it was going to be. Now, reality is young people, women, came out in big numbers. It's the reason that John Fetterman won. Exit polling showed Fetterman got 70% of the Gen Z vote. And I think it was like 55% of the millennial vote. And you wonder why the GOP is trying to stop them from voting. Now there's the weird thing. We still not 100% sure that Republicans are going to take the House. It looks like it's going to happen. And that's probably, honestly, given the state of where we are, the second best opportunity. Democrats holding on to the House and holding on to the Senate so that we can actually get some stuff done. That the best, in my view, the best outcome. But the second best one is, hold on to the Senate, give the Republicans the House a slim majority, and let them be as crazy as they want to be. It's just one of those things where you go, yeah, they're going to be as crazy as, because almost certainly they're going to overreach. Now, got to hold on to the Senate because you want to allow Biden to continue to get his people through the nomination process, the judges on the bench, and all of that stuff. But there's a part of me, and we talked about this yesterday on the program. There's part of me that goes, maybe you need to let the what they want to have happen. Impeachment hearings weekly, all of the kind of absurd, ridiculous, we're going to investigate everything. Hunter Biden's underwear, I guess we're going to find out what size he wears. This is where they want to go. This is how they govern. Understand? Again, no plan, no policies. We're going to see. Now, like I said, there's a chance Democrats could still hold the Senate. That's still up in the air. There are 3 Senate seats still left in play. There are some 50 House seats that they're saying still left in play. Lauren Boebert's seat, she's down by like 70 votes, which tells me every vote matters. But I got into this conversation, this back and forth today of, what was yesterday? What was Tuesday's vote? Was it the pro-democracy, anti-MAGA majority turning out and sending that resounding message that Republican extremism is something we're not going to tolerate, like in Pennsylvania with Doug Mastriano being just thumped? Or was it, just the GOP candidates were really bad, like Doug Mastriano, really bad? Or was it really November? Was it the women who came out in overwhelming numbers and decided that this is it? I think it's all of the above and then some. This is where the organizing of where we go from here. This is where the organizing of what's next has to happen. And I keep coming back to, we need to get into rural communities. We need to talk about the wins. We need to talk about the things that Biden has done, the policies that they're moving, the good stuff. And also listen. There are a lot of communities that we went through on the Working Class Heroes Tour that, they were the used-to-bes. We need to make them the future. So that's where I'm kind of at. Now, would Republicans have had a better shot of winning bigger margins and all of that in the House and maybe even the Senate seats if they had better candidates? Or even just generic candidates? Probably. Because, look, the exit polls in a midterm election with a very unpopular president, with inflation as high as it is and some of the problems, that gas prices as high as it is, you had independents who swung towards Democrats. 49% of independents polled went over to the Democrats. In fact, what's interesting is even the people who disapprove of Biden, somewhat or more, 49% of the people who disapprove of Biden voted for him, compared to 45% who voted against him. That's pretty impressive. Now, what's been interesting for me to watch today is the temper tantrum on the right, Donald Trump leading the way, blaming his wife for Dr. Oz, because that's the manly thing to do. It's my wife's fault. She made me do it. She made me. Look, he backed a lot of bad candidates, a lot of crazy candidates. But that didn't stop him today from going after Ron DeSantis, who won a resounding victory. If there was a red wave, it was Florida. But you do have him going after DeSantis, saying, the election in Florida is over and everything went quite well. Shouldn't it be said that in 2020 I got 1.1 million more votes in Florida than Ron D got this year? Just asking. Don, it was a presidential year. You can't compare the two, but you can see what they're trying to do. They're trying to tear down DeSantis. They're trying to tear into him because Trump sees that's his competition. So it's going to be interesting to watch them eat each other. Now the funny thing is Pat Toomey, who John Fetterman took his position, or is going to be taking his position, said Trump's the one to blame for all this. He's laying all of the losses, all of the problems, everything in this election cycle at the doorstep of Donald Trump. And saying, look, the party needs to look elsewhere. The party needs to move in a new direction. The party needs to dump the Trump. Found that interesting. Now, here's the weird thing is there's going to be a MAGA caucus. There's going to be a crazy, red hat wearing MAGA caucus because at least 80 people who questioned the 2020 election, they've won seats in the House. That is going to be interesting to see how it plays out. But look, Tuesday's election, massive victories for Democrats. When what was supposed to be a 40-seat loss, they're only going to lose a handful. Republicans, you kind of screwed yourself up. And fortunately for workers, for democracy, for the future of this country, that's where we are. But I'd love to hear your thoughts. Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK. We'll take a quick break. When we come back, our good friend Greg Palast is going to be here to share some thoughts on his movie Vigilante and what's going on down in Georgia. a runoff election going to happen, and how much did SB 202 play into that? We're going to find out with Greg after this. Stick around. You're listening to the Rick Smith Show. If you're a fan of the show, you've heard our labor history in 2 segments, and you can hear them on the radio pretty much anywhere in the U.S. Labor history has never been more important than it is right now. So here's what we'd like you to do. Tell a teacher. Tell a teacher that labor history is important and that they can get digestible 2-minute lessons that are absolutely free. Free to download, free to use, free to share. Tell a teacher to go to thericksmithshow.com/history and help us put labor back where it belongs, in the classroom. You know, generations of American workers fought, bled, and died to build the American way of life. It's our job to keep their stories alive. Go tell a teacher that we're here to help them do just that. Find us at thericksmithshow.com/history today.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So the Senate is weighing in the balance, and I think Georgia's going to be it. Do we end up with a Senator Herschel Walker who literally came out and said, hey, I struggle from mental illness, and the woman I love, my wife, worries I'm going to murder her. That guy could be in the Senate. I mean, that's just mind-blowing to me. But again, I got a question. How much of what Republicans have done legislatively has caused this? And here to share some thoughts on what's going on in Georgia, maybe a little on the runoff, I've asked our good friend Greg Palast to come share some thoughts with us. Greg is an author of numerous books, my favorite being The Best Democracy Money Can Buy. Also, the latest movie, Vigilante, Georgia's Vote Suppression Hitman, which you can watch over the next 2 days at vigilantemovie.com. Greg, thanks for taking time for us.
Greetings from lovely Georgia, where I'm stuck again. 9 years in a row, I keep coming back to Georgia because it is ground zero of it's the vote. As my colleague Zach Roberts says, it's the test kitchen for vote suppression trickery.
Let's talk about that really quick. How much of this race being as close as it is has to do with the fact that people have been denied the ability to vote? How much of that's playing into it?
About 100%. I just left the New Georgia Project, which is the one of the key voting rights groups here, and I asked the same question you did. I was interviewing them on camera, and I said, is there any, so did the Jim Crow suppression tactics play anything in denying Reverend Senator Warnock a clean victory? He's now, so understand, Warnock is now in a runoff, the Senator Warnock, the Democrat, in a runoff with Herschel Walker, and because neither of them got 50% of the vote plus one, Warnock is probably going to come a couple thousand votes short. And they said 100% is Jim Crow trickery. And I can give you just a few quick examples. You know what? And by the way, again, you can see. I just want to tell people at the front end, get a pencil or type it into your machine or your phone, whatever. Tonight and tomorrow night, you can see the film Vigilante, Georgia's Vote Suppression Hitman, care of Jamie Foxx, who has paid for us to have it free tonight and tomorrow, so you know what's going on in Georgia, at vigilantemovie.com. Now, did you know that last year, 2020, in the presidential election, there were 1.2 million mail-in ballots, overwhelmingly cast by Democrats, overwhelmingly cast by black folk, progressives, urban areas. 1.2 million mail-in ballots.
Right.
This year, this election, 0.2 million mail-in ballots. And a drop, vanishing 1 million mail-in ballots. Again, that's where the Democrats vote, is early mail-in. A million down.
How is that? Is it just that Democrats said, no, we're going to go to the polls this year? We're going to take... No?
You'd have to be out of your mind to go to the polls. I'll tell you why, because they've cut the number of polling stations so you can wait 5 hours in line. And under SB 202 signed last year by Governor Kemp, if I hand you a bottle of water, Pete, you're waiting in line 5 hours. This is no joke. That's a felony crime in Georgia. Now, so no one wants, you have to be crazy, but you have no choice. You have to vote in person because they made mail-in voting, knowing that it's Democratic, almost impossible. So they lost 1 million mail-in votes, 83% drop. How did they do that? Two things. Number one, they start this new gimmick where it's very difficult to ask for the ballot. It's very difficult to fill it out because you have to include ID, which is ridiculous because they won't send you an absentee ballot unless they verify who you are anyway. So you still got to send back that ID, even though you had to have an ID to get the ballot. Second, people in Atlanta use drop boxes. There were 107 drop boxes in the Atlanta area. It's all Democrats. And now there are 25 by state law. So they dropped for all of Atlanta. All of Atlanta area. And when I say Atlanta area, I don't mean just the city, the whole surrounds. Right. In 4 key urban counties, 25 boxes. And so it's almost impossible to use it. But guess what? That's not good enough to just cut them by 75%. They had to say, you can't use the drop box. They used to be outside 24 hours like a mailbox. Now they're inside the polling stations. You cannot use a ballot drop box unless you go during voting hours, early voting hours, and drop it off inside the polling station. Well, it's like waiting in line. And also, again, they made it nearly impossible to use those drop boxes because it was a Democratic.
Yeah, it sounds like somebody doesn't want people to vote.
You think. And dig this. Now, there's going to be a runoff, and we're going to decide. And so Georgia, again, they changed the date of the runoff. In the 2020 election, they had the runoff between Warnock and when Ossoff ran. Remember, he had 2 Senate seats that went into runoff in Georgia. They had 60 days. They cut that to 30. And I asked them why. I asked the voting groups why. And they said, very simple. Cutting the voting days. Guess when the deadline for registering for the primary, for the runoff is? The day before yesterday.
Yeah, of course.
So that anyone who says, oh my God, this runoff is going to be incredibly important, I want to register to vote, or young people, there's literally tens of thousands of young people who suddenly qualify, turn 18 in this month in Georgia. And remember, young people vote Democratic. You can't register to vote. If you're going to turn 18, tough luck, buddy. You won't be allowed to vote in Georgia because you have to register the day before the general election instead of the month after. There's no time. And the groups are saying, because again, Democrats vote by mail. They say, don't ask for a mail-in ballot. No one's set up to do it. The ballots aren't printed. Remember, they won't even know officially till tomorrow if there's a runoff. There's no early voting hours even set. They don't even know what days you're allowed to do early voting if they're going to have early voting at all. The rules, because they changed the law, and the law, when they changed the law, they didn't change the early voting hours. So the early voting hours at the moment are after the election. So you want to vote early, it'll be after the election, your vote won't count. So welcome to Georgia. Welcome to Jim Crow.
It's laughable, but this is deadly serious. I mean, the reality is the future of this country hangs in the balance because this one race is going to decide, I believe, who has control of the Senate.
Exactly. As it did last time, we're going to see this again, and they're going to do everything to keep Reverend Warnock from getting reelected. So again, now the other thing, so you lost 1 million mail-in ballots. They shut off the drop boxes. Imagine if the post office said, oh, you can still use a mailbox, but you can only the mailboxes inside the post office during postal hours. By the way, all drop boxes were sealed off last week. You couldn't use it on election day. You couldn't use it. They stopped souls to the polls voting on Sunday. There was no early voting permitted on this past weekend before the election, the normal souls to the polls day. Who is souls to the polls day? The souls are black souls going to the polls. So they stopped that too. They will do anything to stop the votes. The other thing that they were doing is thousands of ballots were never received. Absentee ballots were received. The New York Times said, "Oh, it was 1,000 ballots from one county." No, because the New York Times sits there in their little tower in Atlanta, and they only see the one county in Atlanta. No, we have 159.
This is all of them, isn't it?
This is all over thousands and thousands of voters. And again, who are those voters who don't get their ballots? Young people, et cetera. We also have this, and the whole point of vigilante Georgia's vote suppression hitman. The key story is that these individual vigilantes, these are not government officials, they are Republican Party officials. I'm not being partisan, Rick. Every single vote challenger, every single one, almost 100 of them, have challenged 149,000 voters. Every single challenger is a Republican official. Every one. The Democrats don't do this. I asked the Democrats why, the obvious question, well, why don't you challenge a couple 100,000 of their voters? They said, we can't do that. It's just not we are not going to grace this ugly Jim Crow tactic by mirroring it. So if you think if this was a fair fight, and remember, that's why Stacey Abrams called her organization Fair Fight.
Right.
If this was a fair fight, there would be no runoff. I mean, Herschel Walker wouldn't have even been in the running. He's hit his head too many times to actually run a campaign. And besides, he had to move here from Texas, so he was busy unpacking during the campaign. He's not a choice.
Yeah, but to me, that's the bigger part of all this. I mean, the voter suppression thing, yeah, that's enormous. The voter theft that is going on, that's enormous. But even the fact that anyone would vote for this person as even remotely qualified, that to me just sends an even bigger red flag up. Yes, it's extraordinarily important to talk about vote theft and vote suppression and all the things that the Republicans have done. Yes, I'm there, but I'm still stuck in this place that this guy is wholly unqualified to be anywhere. He shouldn't even be allowed to visit the Senate, let alone be a senator.
He's perfectly qualified because, as he says, he has tremendous mental problems. He relies on other people to tell him what to do, and that's what they wanted. They want some guy who is the glove puppet of the powers of Georgia. Because I want to remind you, as we say in the film Vigilante, vote suppression is class war by other means. See, most vote suppression, as you know, has been aimed at black people, but also young people. But it's really, when they say black, they mean people without the power and authority economically. And the ruling class, remember one thing you'll find out in the film, and it's not much of a spoiler alert because there's so much good stuff in there, but we found out that Brian Kemp, the current governor, who just beat Stacey Abrams, that's another question, but Brian Kemp, his family was the first to bring enslaved Africans to Georgia. This is the oldest, richest family of Georgia. They're not going to give up their power. They're not going to give up their authority. The Southern Company, Georgia Power, what's the biggest company in Georgia? Coke Industries.
Right.
This is where the Georgia Pacific, where they make all your toilet paper, that's Coke Industries. Do you think that they're going to let Reverend Warnock stay in the U.S. Senate? Now, the good news is that they can't shaft you out of your vote, every single vote.
Yeah, they can't take them all.
So they can't take them all. They can only shave it. So all these techniques, like stopping people from registering for the runoff, not sending in their ballots. We have a problem in Georgia called exact match. So, for example, the head of the New Georgia Project was named, the last head is Nsé Ufot from Africa, and citizen here for many years, attorney. But she has an accent over her name, N-S-E. You can imagine how many state records don't match her name exactly or don't have the accent correct. And the result is that her vote, if she shows her driver's license, it doesn't match her registration, she can't vote. I kid you not. And you mail in your ballot and you forget that you registered using your middle initial, but you signed it without your middle initial. For this picayune thing,
it's a way to steal people's votes. No,
45 states they say, well, it's obviously you. Rick Smith, is Rick Smith. Just because one time he said Rick G. Smith and one time he said just Rick Smith, it's you. But there, you've got this gotcha game. And as you're seeing in Pennsylvania when they said, oh, you didn't date your ballot. By the way, do you know why you have to date your ballot in Pennsylvania? So they make sure that it was actually mailed on time. Well, do you realize there are thousands of ballots in Pennsylvania where the voting officials already had, before Election Day, your ballot.
Yep.
So they know that it was mailed on time. But if you didn't put it in the date, or the post office didn't stamp it with the date, hey, you're SOL. And this is the games that are being played. They don't trust the voters, certainly not in Georgia. Because when they let the voters vote in Georgia, they get shocked because Georgia actually has a long history as a progressive state, and people don't realize that. And the only way that they could have kept power is by their plantation voting system.
Yeah, well, it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. Again, we're going to keep up on this, and I want you to come back and keep us up to date on what's going on as you're on the ground. But today and tomorrow, the movie, vigilantemovie.com. Go see it. Like me, I think you're going to be shocked, and it is free. Get the popcorn because it is a popcorn movie. Greg, as always, great stuff, brother. Appreciate it.
You're the best. Greg Palast reporting for Rick Smith from Georgia.
Thanks so much. GregPalast.com, the website. Also, make sure you check out that one. But important, vigilantemovie.com. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at that. Highly suggest it. And as I said, grab the popcorn because it's still a movie, and it's a good one. Going to take a quick break. Right back. Stick around. Listen to The Rick Smith Show. For working people, come to talk. I'm Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1996. That was the day the United Steelworkers and Bridgestone Firestone finally reached a tentative settlement after a bitter 28-month dispute. After years of restructuring and decline, the company demanded massive concessions from the workforce. By July 1994, 4,000 members of the United Rubber Workers walked off the job at 5 plants across the country. They were on strike against wage and benefit cuts, the loss of holidays and union protections. They also rejected the company's attempt to institute a grueling 12-hour, 7-day work week and a 2-tier wage scale. The company permanently replaced more than half of the workforce 6 months into the strike. When the NLRB was slow to answer numerous unfair labor practice complaints, the United Rubber Workers called off the strike the following May. The company refused to reinstate hundreds of strikers, including 2 local presidents fired for union activity. Those who did return came back to plants filled with scabs. Though the strike may have ended, a campaign for justice continued when the United Rubber Workers merged with the United Steelworkers. Historian Robert Weir notes that in launching its international campaign, the United Steelworkers publicized the company's pollution problems, its safety and health violations, and intolerable working conditions. It also forged an important link with a militant Japanese union Zenroiko, raising fears that the strike could spread to Bridgeport's home operations. Protests, demonstrations, and boycotts continued throughout 1996 until the NLRB finally answered unfair labor practices brought against the company. The final settlement included the rehiring of all strikers, a wage increase, and all workers' original demands except one: production speed up would continue.
Every election day, we're told, go vote. Your vote is sacred, they tell us. It's your constitutional right. Well, yes to voting, but most people, including most politicians, would be astonished to learn that America's Constitution contains no declaration that we the people have a right to vote. In the founding document of our democratic republic, voting is mentioned 37 times, but none of them embrace access to the ballot as a fundamental right. This is no oversight, for most of the founders of the 1780s were unabashed plutocrats who wanted suffrage restricted to white male property owners, fencing out the democratic rabble. James Madison himself, author of the Bill of Rights, insisted that only the wealthy be allowed to vote, calling them, quote, the safest repositories of Republican liberty. He warned that poorer classes could be swayed by populist anger at the propertied elites. Among the prominent founders, only Benjamin Franklin had the temerity to dissent from Madison's institutionalization of plutocratic rule, pointing out that the vast majority of those who had fought, bled, and died to establish the new nation were landless commoners. He also rudely noted that the wealthy were at least as corruptible as the poorest of the poor, so disenfranchising the masses would do nothing to improve a government's virtue. Slowly, painfully, generations of grassroots commoners have inched open the American ballot box to more of us, extending the legal possibilities of democratic participation. But as we see in this year's blatant, violent mob efforts by the right-wing minority to shut out millions of legitimate voters, the few can still overrule the many in America. This is Jim Hightower saying, meanwhile, bills calling for a constitutional amendment to affirm every citizen's fundamental right to cast a ballot have never been given a hearing, much less a vote.
Welcome back to the Rick Smith Show. Now, here is Rick Smith.
So, as we've been talking about, it wasn't the red wave that we were promised. It was barely a trickle, but some good, really good stuff came out of it. For instance, my state of Pennsylvania, big win. The Democrats are going to hold the House in Pennsylvania for the first time in a couple of decades. This is a big thing. Michigan, Minnesota, just, but no bigger in my view than what happened in Illinois, as the voters in Illinois voted overwhelmingly. At this point, it's like a 60-40 split that they voted for the workers' right amendment to make sure that the union rights are constitutional rights. And, this is something that I've been saying for a long time needs to happen. Labor needs to be just pushing on this stuff. That's why I've asked Don Villar to come talk with us. Don is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Chicago Federation of Labor, one of the driving forces behind this workers' right amendment. You can check out their website, chicagolabor.org. Don, thanks for taking time for us.
Hey, Rick, thanks for having me. Thanks for letting me call in for the night. Thanks for talking about such an important topic. I mean, what a big victory for labor.
Oh, absolutely. And one that I'm hoping now is going to be the springboard that we see go through states across the country, New York, Massachusetts, New Jersey, California. Start pushing these out and get this momentum in the direction of saying, you know what, we believe in workers' rights, and get voters to vote on that issue.
Right. I mean, we all work. Every worker deserves rights. And then, putting it in the Constitution, adding it to the Bill of Rights, workers' rights, civil rights, workers' rights, human rights, it's all the same. And we did something in Illinois that, that hasn't been done in the country, anywhere in the country. Just codify, these rights. This is part of our basic rights, workers' rights.
Yeah. Now, what I thought was interesting, and while we were in Chicago on our Working Class Heroes radio tour, I found it interesting. The attacks against this were it's going to cost the state all kinds of money. It's going to do all these horrible things. The sun's going to fade. The moon's going to explode. Babies won't be born. Puppies will run in fear. And all it is saying that what you have currently is what will remain for future generations. So I found the fear and smear and the scare tactics kind of humorous, and I'm glad that they didn't work.
Exactly. Fear, and confusion, fear and lies and misinformation. That's their tactic, right? If you can't beat them head to head, lie, and just scare the bejesus out of people to follow your lead. And raising property taxes or impacting this, that, or the other. It was just that message just didn't ring through. It's amazing. There are a couple articles, some newspapers picked apart like the arguments from the other side, and they said, nah, that's not true. It is not true. And just the misinformation, the fact checking, and but that's their playbook, right?
Yeah.
You scare people. You scare people to vote against their interests. Unfortunately, here in Illinois, the good people who care about workers' rights, they won out.
Now, again, I come back to this, and for me, this is hopefully going to be that springboard, as I said, because I think people in this moment, especially coming out of the pandemic, we were told we're essential, we're frontline heroes, and not being treated that way. The tool, the avenue, the instrument to ensure that you're essential, to ensure you're treated with dignity and fairness, and you make better wages, hours, and conditions. This is that tool, and I think this is that moment, Don, that we got to be out there talking about just how important collective bargaining rights are, just how important the work that you and others in the labor movement do.
Yeah, no, the latest Pew report said, we have 70% of the public have a positive view of unions. 70%, it's like the highest in more than half a century. And people understand the need for that voice, for labor unions. And man, I think this demonstrates that the country needs workers needs unions. American workers need the labor. They need the labor movement, and they need the labor movement to be active, to be fighting for them, to pretty much everything that we always fight for: wages, hours, working conditions, and also everything else. Lifting up communities, protecting families. It goes beyond that, right? I mean, that's what work is so vital for our families and for our communities, and that's what the labor movement's all about here.
Yeah,
And,
you're listening to the Rick Smith Show. We're here with Don Villari, Secretary-Treasurer of the Chicago Federation of Labor. Make sure you check out their website, chicagolabor.org. We'll get links out on social media where you can look that up. Also look at the huge victory on the Workers' Rights Amendment. Now, I do got to ask you, because as we were going around on our Working Class Heroes tour, we were going to a lot of rural communities, a lot of places that you would consider as used to be. They used to be the manufacturer of rubber, used to be the glass capital, used to be this or that. Voters are angry, and I think the one thing that Democrats have got to get their heads around is that rural voters are angry, urban voters are angry, and for me, the way we fix some of this stuff is we bring back manufacturing, we make those jobs that we have good union jobs, because everybody I talk to all across our tour, they're pining for those jobs back. They want those union jobs. And I don't think they necessarily want those dirty factory jobs. Nobody wants to go back into the steel mills. They want those union jobs. They want those wages, those benefits, that job security.
Yeah, no, we're back to where we were about a century ago. As the labor movement before the National Labor Relations Act, right? Workers today are not much different than they were a century ago. We're all just trying to live and survive. And the struggles are the same. Sure, it was manufacturing and industry back then, but today it's a different kind of work, right? Our service sector, we're not necessarily working with our hands, but we're working more and more with our minds, right? And minds and hearts. So,
let me ask you this, because I had someone while I was on the tour, and now you being in Chicago, the home of the fight for the 8-hour workday. This person told me that we don't need the 8-hour day anymore. We don't need overtime pay or any of that stuff anymore, because we don't do that kind of hard physical manual labor like they used to, that the 8-hour day protected people from. We don't need that, because all we do now is sit on the couch and use our computers. Do you have any thoughts on whether that's flawed ideology or not?
Oh, that's definitely flawed ideology. I mean, at the end of the day, working 8 hours, you're going to be dog tired whether you're using your brains or using your muscle. And I had a meeting earlier tonight, and I was talking to some folks in the newsroom. They're not lifting 100-pound bags or working in the boiler room, but they're just as dog tired, producing and writing stories for air, and that mental stress. I guess that's what we all work is a stressful thing, whether it's physical labor or mental labor.
Yeah, and it's called work, Don. It's not called fun.
No.
It's called work for a reason. These are still hours of my life that I'm giving to somebody to earn enough money so I can support my family. I'm not doing this because I woke up today and go, gee, I want to do whatever the task is because it's fun. I hope it's fun for people when they go to work. I hope they enjoy what they do. But I got to think that most people, they got their choice. They're doing something else.
Absolutely. I love folks who say, hey, I'm doing the work that I love. But also, at the end of the day, it's still stressful work. It's still a lot of work, and they get tired. They're dealing with all the other abuses that any job requires, right? And it's work. I'm glad you love it, maybe, and hope that makes the day go by a little easier.
Yep.
But it's still work. It's labor.
Yeah. No, I love what I do here, but I could easily do something else.
Right.
But here's the thing, and this is where we're in a moment, and I want to get your thoughts on Tuesday's election results, because I know in Illinois you guys did pretty well. Illinois is a pretty sane state. Ohio, my former state of Ohio, I don't know what happened. I was really hopeful that Tim Ryan, who I think ran the right campaign, was right on the issues, and where I think Democrats need to find their messaging. I'm curious your thoughts nationally. What'd you think of the day?
Oh, you know what? Everybody was girding themselves for that big red wave tsunami, and it turned out to be just a trickle, right? And been watching intently, with the Senate. I mean, there's that big pickup in Pennsylvania, and hopefully Nevada and Arizona fall our way. It looks like Arizona is, Kelly's doing well in Arizona, and then hopefully, Democrat in Nevada, when those votes start coming in, she'll pull it out. And then we've got a runoff in Georgia, right? So
there's a chance here that it's not going to be too crazy. So the last question I've got for you, because you as a labor leader, as someone who's pushing policy, where do we go the next 2 years? And nothing's going to get done legislatively on the national level. We're not going to get any huge legislation pushed through. What's the messaging? What are you guys going to be pushing for and working for over these next 2 years, do you think?
Again, just continue the fight for workers' rights, right, around the country. I think one of the big things right now, you see with, the Fed trying to ramp up interest rates to reduce or to raise the unemployment rate. Like, people want to work. These policies, these economic policies that are making it, that's really impacting workers more than the investment class, right? Think about that whole policy. The Fed's raising interest rates so they can increase unemployment.
No, they're saying that. That's they're outwardly saying that they want to push down wages and they want to bring down inflation off the backs of working people.
Yeah, but I think inflation is going to be a big thing. But let's face it, a lot of this inflation is corporate driven. It's just profit driven. Oil and gas companies trying to, they're just taking, putting this over the coals, and all the commodities. It doesn't make sense.
Consolidation, monopolization, and corporate greed. That's for me, that's the main driver. And I think, there's an economist recently who actually put a number on how much of the inflation is responsible, how much is responsible for corporate greed. And he said 53%. So over half of the inflation is based on CEOs going, hey, this is a great opportunity to gouge our customers and screw over our workers and line our pockets. So is it surprising that they do it when they have the opportunity? Of course not.
Of course not. That's what they're doing. And to some extent, I was thinking about this the other day. Remember during COVID time, right? When the global shutdown, the oil companies, they were spending more money to hold on to the oil than to pull the oil out of the ground, right? Remember that there was a negative price point on oil, on a barrel of oil. So to some extent, they're trying to rip us off again after.
Remember. I don't know about you, but I took economics course, and when there's this oversupply of something, the price goes down. It shouldn't be going up. So if they had all this stuff that they were holding on to when it went into the market, the price should have been down. But no, not in our rigged economy.
No, you hit the nail right on the head. The rigged economy. I think folks need to. Here in Illinois, fortunately in the city of Chicago, we got public transit. I took the train the other day. In one last push before the Workers' Rights Amendment, I was doing some door knocking yesterday afternoon, just making sure everybody went out to the polls. So I went up to a neighborhood on the city's northwest side and hopped on the train. And I was good. Here in town, folks are complaining about the price of gas and traffic. It's like I was pleasantly surprised to see that the trains were full. So maybe folks are finally realizing, man, one way to deal with the high cost of gas, take public transit.
There you go. Help out our union brothers and sisters who work in the transit industry. Absolutely.
Our HU sisters and brothers.
There you go. Don, as always, I appreciate the time. Great stuff. Keep up the great work there in Chicago, and I look forward to having you come back and talk to us again.
You got it, Rick. You take care.
Good stuff, Don Villar. He is the Secretary-Treasurer of the Chicago Federation of Labor. Make sure you check out their website, chicagolabor.org. We'll get links out on social media. You can take a look at that. But again, huge victory. Want to hear your thoughts? Email me, rick@thericksmithshow.com, or give us a call, 1-866-416-RICK, 1-866-416-7425. This is The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk. Rick Smith, and this is Labor History in 2. On this day in labor history, the year was 1952. That was the day that the labor movement lost Philip Murray. Philip was born in Scotland in 1886 to an Irish Catholic family. His father was a coal miner and a union leader. Philip followed his father into the mines at just the age of 10 years old. The father and son made the trip to the Pennsylvania coal fields together when Philip was just 16. They saved enough money and then sent for the rest of their family. One day, Philip got into an altercation with one of his bosses. Not only was he fired, his entire family was kicked out of their company home. From that point on, Philip was dedicated to the union cause as the only hope for working people. He quickly rose through the ranks of the United Mine Workers, becoming vice president by the time he was 33. He worked closely with United Mine Workers president John L. Lewis. During the 1930s, there became a nationwide drive to organize industrial workers. Philip was appointed to lead the Steelworkers Organizing Committee, a key sector for the industrial effort. The Steelworker Campaign met with historic success. They reached a collective bargaining agreement with U.S. Steel, the giant of the industry. Philip went on to become the first president of the United Steelworkers of America, as well as president of the Congress of Industrial Organizations. Under his leadership, industrial labor became a powerful force. But that force was checked by the passage of the Anti-Union Taft-Hartley Act in 1947. The anti-communist hysteria of the Red Scare also took its toll on the CIO, forcing Philip to expel some of the most radical unions from the organization. For more information, go to laborhistoryin2.com, like us on Facebook, follow us on Twitter at laborhistoryin2.
You're listening to The Rick Smith Show, where working people come to talk.
Again, that Workers' Rights Amendment is something, again, I'm hoping states across the country are going to grab onto and push out and get people organized around. I think it's a good thing. And again, chicagolabor.org, the website. If you want to take a look at that, let's go to the phones. Got Alice on line one. Alice, how are we doing today?
We're doing better since we found out that Fetterman won.
Yes. And Shapiro. I mean, like I said, Shapiro for me, that was the big one. And then Fetterman. I'm just thrilled to see that. And look, you know, the Democrats in Pennsylvania have taken the House. That is enormous.
I know. And I wasn't too worried about Shapiro because I hadn't seen a whole lot of Mastriano signs in our little red county. But I had seen some odd ones, so I was going, oh, this is not a good thing.
Yeah.
But Florida, I was just like, really? They're insane. And my husband said tonight when we were watching the news and then finding out, of course, it's a hurricane, they have another one. And my husband said, you know what? Maybe they ought to make Trump pay for damages from the hurricane. And then he started laughing. He goes, but that's assuming that he has any money. And I was just like, yeah, really.
There's that. But look, I've got some listeners who've reached out and said, you know, maybe it's time to stop, to cut off these welfare states, these red states who take more from the federal government and take money from blue states to be able to do the horrible things they do. Maybe it's time to start cutting off the welfare stream to those states.
Oh, I would go for that because you're sitting there going, he spent how many millions to illegally indulge himself in human trafficking because that's what he did.
Yeah.
And now he's going to want money to rebuild because we have another hurricane going through. Enough of that already.
There you go. Appreciate it, Alice. Thanks so much.
Have a good one.
Good stuff. Yeah, I mean, you know, I've had a bunch of people lately say, you know, we should be cutting these people, these red states off, you know, from federal funding because, you know, evidently they've got the right policies. They shouldn't need welfare from the federal government. Kind of interesting thought. Let's go to I got Eric on line 3 listening on KTNF in Minnesota. Eric, thanks for taking time for us.
Oh, hey, thank you for taking my call. No, it's I'm overall happy. In fact, it's funny the tip mentioned before. Yeah, if only, but I'll tie that into what I was going to say here in a little bit. But yeah, DFL state. I mean, that's actually a pretty big deal. I'm pretty happy about that. They're going to get rid of the gridlock that the Republicans have been putting up in the state legislature for a while. Think we're going to get some stuff done for actual people, not the ones that not the ones on the 20th floor, if you know what I mean.
Yep.
So, but I think now more than ever, we need to continue the work of pointing out what the hell the deal is, and what the heck the deal, who is causing what. I think we're all hopeful what happened, we're hopeful what might happen in Georgia and Florida, but you know what? We need to point out to people, hey, because it means more coming from guys like us. That have to actually work for a living.
No, this is where, when we were on our tour, these were the issues that resonated with people. This is where I keep telling my Democratic Party friends, this is your message. Get back into your wheelhouse and run the campaign that Tim Ryan ran. Talk about those issues. That's what's important.
No, that's absolutely right. And if anything, because whatever the leadership's going to do, the leadership's going to do. This is going to be up to us. And, if that's how they want to run elections down there in Georgia and in Florida, that's how they want to win, you know what? That ain't right. Because that's awful rich. And if anything, to point out that, if only we could cut off that funding, but you know what? Let's point that out, though. That state drains more money or takes in more money than they actually put out. The state that they actually make fun of, like in California, who's actually, distributing out money. Is that fair? But, to lead to a bigger thing of they don't care about you. All they want to do is get you ginned up and pissed off, because then how much of that ginned up and pissed off equals dollars in your bank account? How much does that ginned up and pissed off get you an extra day off of work? It doesn't. Does it give you more vacation time? Does it give you more sick time? No, it doesn't. They don't care about you at all. In fact, they're the ones that are shipping your job overseas, right to work. They're making it worse. And you know what? The thing that makes me mad about the Republicans, they could be dunking on the Democrats, and they're not.
Yep.
That, to me, sucks.
No, the reality is they don't have any issues that they're running on that helps the working class. And I say it all the time. Republicans hate working people. Just look at their policies. It comes out this way all the time.
Oh, yeah, Obama, that's the funny thing is, he's not my total favorite, but he hit the nail on the head. In fact, I almost thought, from my head or from our thoughts to his ears, right?
Yep.
He started pointing it out. What's their policy? Oh, yeah, tax cuts for the rich and blame the poor. That's their thing for everything, and we need to keep hammering that.
Absolutely. Eric, I appreciate the call, man. Great stuff.
Absolutely. No, hey, take care. Keep up the good work.
Thanks so much. Appreciate it. No, Eric's spot on. I could have taken the night off and let Eric do the show, because that's the message right there. And in fact, look, it's just not me saying this. It's just not me making this stuff up. The polling is there. Tim Ryan and John Fetterman both outperformed Biden in rural counties across the board with this working class message. And it shows that if Democrats would get their heads out of their, and they could eat into some of the Republican margins in rural America, because progressive policies are really popular. Getting people health care, really popular. Making sure that the wages that workers earn are sufficient to support a family, really popular. Retirement security, really popular. Going after corporate America and holding them accountable and breaking up monopolies, popular. Progressives, not so much, because the mainstream corporate-controlled for-profit media has just demonized them and made them the other. So when you're talking about Democrats or progressives, everyone puts up their defenses. But when you start talking about policy, the policy that's going to make their lives better, going across rural America and talking about broadband, major winner. And the weird thing is, the Democrats barely talk about that. And I know it's not happening yet, but the money's been allocated. It's going to start happening, and it better start happening soon. And when it does, I want to see 15-foot-high Joe Biden, I did this signs. I want to see them plastered everywhere. Because here's the thing, and I got this response from a bunch of people on the road. saying, well, the Democratic Party, you talk about all this great stuff, but the Democratic Party, they don't do any of this stuff. They're paid not to. And you go, but no. Their policies, it's been passed. Legislation's been passed. Problem is, Democrats don't have the megaphone that the right has. They haven't built the massive infrastructure. And I'm going to say it a bunch of times. When we were in Iowa with J.D. Scholten, who, good on him, won his state house race, he said, look, talk radio radicalized the state of Iowa, which used to be a solid working class Democratic union state. Right-wing radio radicalized those folks. This is where we got to build the infrastructure, you got to have the conversation, you got to talk to people, and you got to back it up with policy. Words and deeds. Words and deeds. That's simple. Thanks for the call, Eric. Appreciate it. We're going to take a quick break right back after this. Stick around. You're listening to The Rick Smith Show. We're working people. Not the phone.
The clock is ticking.
It's a big week for the planet as UN Climate Conference kicks off in Egypt. Major glaciers to disappear by 2050. Plus,
this is a massive system.
Late season storm Nicole takes aim at Florida's east coast.
Nicole, all of those stories and more straight ahead from BradBlog.com. I'm Brad Friedman.
And I'm Desi Doyen.
Stand by for 6 minutes of independent green news, politics, analysis, and snarky comment.
And the biggest threat to democracy is to have someone like Senator Warnock to vote against our Keystone Pipeline.
Okay, A, pipeline from Canada is not a threat to democracy, Herschel Walker. And 2, Senator Warnock did not vote against the pipeline. It was not up for a vote. This is your Green News Report. Okay, Desi Doyen, as we go to air, a big day, Election Day, and I'm sure it has nothing at all to do with the climate, correct?
It has everything to do with the climate. But first, as we go to air, the east coast of Florida is under a new state of emergency as a rare November storm, Nicole, heads its way. It's forecast to deluge the state when it makes landfall as a hurricane later this week, even as residents are still trying to recover from deadly Hurricane Ian in September.
You're on board KCAA's Inland Talk Express. KCAA.